Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. My name is Brooks Bonner. Some of you I have met, I'm sure, or spoken to or conversed with via email. I'm an admissions counselor with the Organization for Tropical Studies, and this is OTS's webinar series called Trop Talks. And today we are going to be joined by Dr. Laurence Kruger, who is the director of OTS South Africa. And specifically, he is going to be talking about the African Ecology and Conservation in South Africa semester study abroad program. So, just to give you guys a little bit of a review before we get started, this is a Duke University credit program. So, any student that participates in the program does receive a Duke transcript. Um, we are not going to run too long here, depending how excited Laurence gets and how much he wants to share with all you guys. But at the end, there will be an opportunity for everyone to ask questions and kind of go from there. So what I want to first do, and actually what I'll do is I'm going to share my camera with you also, so you can see me, and then I believe Laurence is going to come on board here in a second. But at the end, there is going to be an opportunity. Hello, everyone. At the end, there is going to be an opportunity for you to ask questions, and there is a way for you to notify me when you do have a question. So if you all are using the Fuse software, if you go to the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you're going to see three different dots, and it should say More menu if you take your cursor over that. Okay, if you click on that, it's going to bring up a drop-down menu, and you're going to see a bunch of different options. What you want to select if you have a question at the end is the option for raise your flag. Again, at the end, if you do have a question and you do want to ask it in front of the group, go ahead and click raise your flag. I'll see that you have a question. I'll unmute you, and then you have that opportunity to ask the question to Laurence. So let's see. We get Laurence. Get your camera turned on there. I can hear you.
Yeah, here we go. Let me just turn that on.
There we go. And Laurence is being great. He's actually with the fall 2017 group right now, and it's just past midnight. So Laurence is doing us a favor and staying up a little late so to talk to all you about the program. So Laurence, it's good to see you, and I will hand over the mic to you to take over.
Great. Thanks very much, Brooks, and also welcome to all of you guys. We've just, I guess we're about 3 weeks into our current semester, and the students are busy with a bunch of fieldwork projects at the moment, cutting their teeth in their first experience in Savannah research. So all fired up about the program and happy to share. So I guess just a bit of background before I start talking about your potential experiences. I guess you guys would have done a little bit of research into OTS South Africa, or OTS in general, already, and you know that it's a consortium of a variety of universities around the States, with a headquarters, North American headquarters at Duke, and in Costa Rica, we have the bulk of our programs. Although we've run programs pretty much all around South America, Peru, Mexico, even Suriname. And then I guess in the early 2000s, given some interest by the key funders at that stage, the Mellon Foundation, we established an undergraduate course in South Africa. Up to that point, it was most of the courses that we ran were graduate courses. And those graduate courses originally founded by E.O. Wilson, who many of you would have heard about. But as I say, in 2000, we started undergraduate courses, and we joined with a bunch of local partners, University of Cape Town and Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, as well as the biggest conservation agency in the country called South African National Parks. And we all joined in a partnership to develop undergraduate programs, primarily based in the Kruger Park, but also traveling extensively around South Africa. And I'll explain that fully just now. And usually the course is about 25 students strong. The majority from the US, but I cannot run programs in South Africa without having South Africans on board. It adds value to your experiences, but I also think that it's important that South Africans benefit from the study abroad energy and ethics. So it's a mixed program, And the students, South African students, mostly come from University of Cape Town and Wits University, as well as Sandparks. And I'll tell you all about the journey in a second, but we've run 27 of these ecology courses since 2004, and we're just starting off on the 28th. And as an aside, we've also run about 13 global health courses and 9 research internships, which I'll end the talk on, just to give you some sense of what's beyond the OTS ambit. Anyhow, our year in South Africa looks like this. We run 2 semester-long programs, the fall and the spring semesters. They last 100 days each. And then in the middle of the year, we run 2 global health programs, but also a research internship, which at this stage focuses mostly on elephants, fire, and biodiversity. But we've also run a huge range of projects, anything from bat ecology to diving internships, whatever students are interested in. We try and support your interests. Anyhow, so 2 undergrad ecology semesters and the 2 global health courses. And of course, you guys need to choose which semester you want to come on, depending on where your passions for basketball and travel lie. We run 4 courses. And you guys get accredited through Duke University, and there are 3 ecology courses and 1 history course. And so the first course would focus on the ecology of South African systems. Savannas is what the main reason people come to South Africa for, but we also do spend quite a bit of time down in the fynbos, which is the smallest of the plant kingdoms, and very different dynamics and a fundamentally different ecology. And I'll share some stories about that just now. The second course is the conservation course, and that focuses on conservation efforts inside and outside protected areas. Now, the vast majority of conservation effort in South Africa is actually outside of protected areas. So it's important that you guys, in attending the course, get a clear sense of, our conservation philosophies and how conservation biology theory has influenced the way we manage savanna systems, whether it be fire ecology or dealing with alien invasives and so on. But we also need to think about people in the environment and how we focus on conservation outside of these protected areas. The field research course, it's literally a toolbox, anything from, let's see, bird identification, scat identification. You guys are going to become trackers. You must learn to identify pretty much anything in the field, or most things anyhow, right through to how to use a compass, GPSs, got to do some multivariate statistics, and everything in between. We run extensive science training workshops just to get everybody on the same page, and then we dive into the independent research, which is why many of you guys want to come on these programs in the first place. And then the fourth course is probably the most important course of the lot. South Africa, as is the case for the rest of the world, you can't make conservation decisions based purely on ecology anymore. You have to take into account the broader social and social justice context in particular. And so the History Through Culture course tells you the story of South Africa's history through changing culture. It could be music, could be literature, could be anything. And it depends on the experts that you bring in. And so this year we've got an archaeologist who's coming on board, who's teaching about Bushman rock art and the interactions between Bushmen and Iron Age settlements, and how that might influence, people's attitude towards land today. Anyway, so that's the context for all the ecology and conservation. You guys travel extensively. We start off with places, I've just given you a couple of examples, but a place like Pullen Farm or Nailsvlei, where it's free to roam and nothing's going to eat you, very few dangerous animals. And we start in a place like Pullen explicitly because it gives you guys some breathing room when you start, but also it's a very wet savanna system. And we think it's important. Well, we choose our sites carefully because it's an important teaching tool. So you can't come to grips with savanna ecology without understanding the sort of rainfall gradients and the nutrient gradients. So we take you from very wet savannas to ultimately very dry savannas, and Pullen is that wet savanna area. Frogs, birds, bats, remarkable plants, and room to roam without the need for a game guard. And after 2 weeks of getting you guys all on the same page, and the student body is very dramatically every year. So some years we have primarily ecology students or people with a clear focus on natural history, through to other years where we have a lot more pre-med students, or maybe more history students, or English majors with everybody's taking biology classes. You're just going to make sure everybody's in the same on the same page, ecologically speaking, and then once we've dealt with all the basics of ecology conservation, the history of South Africa, we move into an exposure and experience period where we transport you around the countryside, introduce you to a whole bunch of different places and people, and start providing you guys with the opportunity to engage in field research. And obviously going to Kruger Park, it's a flagship conservation area, big five, long, beautiful walks, sunrises in remarkable areas, sundowners in other remarkable areas, and of course, plenty to see. The students actually went for a game drive this evening, and a pack of wild dogs ran right past our camp. And it's just been a remarkable couple of days with leopards and now, as I say, the wild dogs just came past. It's quite something. We also travel, down to the Cape, and we make sure that you guys get some experience in fynbos. You can't come to South Africa without A, visiting Cape Town, and B, getting to understand a little bit about fynbos ecology, but also engaging in marine systems. So we'll spend time doing some marine projects, getting you guys into wetsuits, diving in rocky intertidal pools. We'll do anything from dung beetle ecology through to bird ecology to herpetological work. You name it, we dive in and do it. Fun story though, we just recently, one of our colleagues who teaches in OTS quite a bit, recently discovered that there was a fynbos plant that produces seeds that mimic the dung of one of the antelope, bontebok, and it fools dung beetles into burying the seeds. And it's that kind of work that we like to focus on the fynbos, these intimate relationships between the plants and their pollinators and their dispersers, and all these remarkable natural history stories. But then also thinking about the conservation of the fynbos, thinking about climate change effects, habitat fragmentation, so all the major themes in conservation biology. We drag you off to the wilderness area of the Cederberg, which is a truly remarkable part of the world. For the passionate rock climbers amongst you, the P-wilders or the adventurous types, it's again a place where you don't need game guards. You can roam unfettered across the landscape, and you can go exploring in your off time, and beautiful walks, crystal clear pools, remarkable. And that's, again, like with savannas, we take you to wet fynbos areas, and we take you to the drier fynbos areas, so which is why we take you to the Cederberg. And then you'll go to either one or two sites, either Mapungubwe National Park or to Puna Maria, both in the far north of the country. So now you've gone from the northeast of the country all the way down to the Cape, and then up to the north again. And you'll spend time, maybe either in Mapungubwe otherwise, on the banks of the great green, greasy Limpopo. If any of you have read Rudyard Kipling, and it's the land of the baobabs, and it's one of my favorite landscapes in the world. And that bottom picture shows you the confluence of the Shashi and the Limpopo River, and on the right hand side is Zimbabwe, and the left hand side is Botswana, and we're in South Africa. And depending on the projects that you do, we might scuttle across the river, and you get to stand in either Botswana or Zimbabwe. But really remarkable from a sort of ecological perspective. Beautiful landscapes, amazing plants, remarkable animals. And then probably one of my favorite sites would be to go to Venda, the old homeland of Venda, to the Tsulu bush camp, and in the little town of Hamakuya. And it's a truly remarkable part of the world. But here it's when we spend a solid 10 days focusing on history and culture, conservation outside of protected areas. You guys will go and homestay, live with Venda families. And the idea is that we employ the head of household as lecturers on the program. They've got to teach you what it is to be the hardest working people in the country, the rural women. And when I say teach, I mean you guys will get exposed to what it's like to live in those areas. You'll possibly attend school with the students. You'll definitely be invited to engage in a game of soccer or song and dance. It's a truly remarkable experience, and I'm not going to spoil the surprise too much, but certainly that is a highlight for many of the students. You guys are coming on a study abroad program, or interested in coming on a study abroad program, because you're curious about travel, you're curious about other countries, but you're interested in getting field experience. More and more we are restricted to campuses in universities around the world, and so it's our job to ensure that you guys get into the field as much as possible, and that could be, field-based research. And here's a picture of Anna doing some fire ecology, or it could be field lectures. If I can give the lecture in the field, why not? And so we, as much as possible, try and get you guys outside of four walls. There are lecture times, and you still got to write exams and do your thing. But the idea is to get you into the field. So we also invite people onto the program. It's not just the same for academics. Well, actually, the staff there are about 8 staff that teach on the program. From hardcore field specialists, Emmanuel can identify anything from 400 paces. Philly is our game guard come ethnobotany specialist, and then the other academics, Tara, Bernard, they all have their specializations. But we also invite other people to come in and teach on the program, so you're not just dealing with the same academics all the time. And for each of those, what we call FFPs, you spend a minimum of 2 days in the field, probably more. 6 or 7 of those projects, it's important for you to get a range of experiences from different academics. So it's not just our style and our models, but you get to engage with other experts in the field. You guys do need to focus on independent research. That's why you're there. But you start slowly, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So long-term research projects, small, confined, predetermined. Then the FFP is a little bit bigger and a little wilder. And then the capstones, once you finish all your science training, we turn to you and ask you about your ideas. And we're really keen to see what's in your minds. And so you've got about 3 weeks to engage in some independent research that's usually allied to some local research need. And I think innovative research is often related to relevance. We look at the pressing needs, the big issues in conservation, the big issues in ecology, which is usually what you guys want to focus on. And so then we help you design a project that focuses on. And we've done anything from elephant research through to disease ecology, through to high school teaching curricula, all kinds. We've even done a documentary, I think. Students have reported on the strength of the program being this sort of field-based experiential learning, and the fact that a lot of the research is allied to local needs and can influence management policy. You guys also engage in some very innovative conservation thinking. So Sandparks applies what they call strategic adaptive management, which is now being exported all around the world, notably to the US. So it's a system that was developed in South Africa that's been exported globally. And it's important that you guys get some sense of what that's about. So you'll be engaging with scientists who work for the park. And there's 3 or 4 major ways in which you can actively manage these parks. So one is manipulating animal movement through establishment of the dropping of fences or even translocation. Disease ecology plays a really important sort of top-down control. So we look at the importance of disease ecology, or the impact of disease on many of the taxa. We can manipulate fires, and we can remove alien invasives. And it's really important that you guys leave South Africa with a clear sense of how we go about managing our protected areas. But I think probably one of the most important experiences that you'll have in this program would be all your community engagement. And that's communities of scientists, communities, rural communities, communities of students. We do it formally. You guys go on a homestay. We do it relatively informally, where you guys interact with South Africans from a broad range, a broad spectrum, from Mode 1 teachers, so theoretical teachers, to Mode 2 teachers, experiential learning in the field, people that don't necessarily have a higher degree, but they're experts in the field of tracking, identification, whatever the case may be. And it's important that you learn from a broad range of sources. But we're also known as that university team, that university group that plays soccer. So wherever we go, we've really tried to develop long-term friendships and long-term relationships, and you guys will be part of that dynamic. So hopefully you'll have a similar experience to what other students have had. But community engagement is fundamentally important for everything that we do. So I guess part of it is to give you guys some sense of the kind of research that we do. So I thought I'd pull together a few slides of some of the major themes. Um, Obviously being a botanist, I got to talk about some big tree research. And you think about trees as hotspots of nutrients and resources in the landscape. And there's a global loss of big trees as a consequence of climate change effects, harvesting for resources, but also in our case in the Kruger Park and other South African reserves, the impact of elephants and fire. And so we're interested in those dynamics. We're interested in how resilient the species are, the trees themselves, but also what the trickle down effects might be for other taxa. So if you're losing big trees, are we also losing the species that are dependent on those trees, like vultures and eagles, and also bats and smaller bird communities and so on? So that's one big theme. As I mentioned, there's often a link between resident faunal communities and vegetation structures. So we often engage in biodiversity surveys where we lay out traps for snakes, we trap small mammals, we collect insects and identify them and release them. And it's all, whatever taxa you wish to focus on, we can explore ecological theory accordingly, and how that then relates to conservation practice. In the past we've worked on avian parasites. We've misnetted birds and collected blood and checked there for ectoparasites. Some of these slides are suggesting, and then we can look at disease load, and as sort of a one health indicator. So thinking about land use change, which might impact biodiversity, which consequently influences ecosystem services, which has impacts on some global health indicators and so on. We've also looked at the interaction between bees and elephants. You can use bees and chilies to manage elephant movement. That was a very cool project. All kinds of things. We, as I say, take it down to the Cape. We engage in some rocky intertidal pool ecology, looking at the impact of poaching on subtidal species. We look at the effects of invasives in these systems, all kinds. But the idea is to give you guys some experience in some marine ecology. Freshwater ecosystems, fundamentally important in South Africa. We're an semi-arid country. We've just experienced the worst droughts in recorded history in the north. And Cape Town is right now experiencing its worst drought. So while you guys are being battered by some awful weather conditions and so on, we're experiencing terrible droughts. And so freshwater ecology becomes important, but also the impact of alien invasives. And you guys we've imported your largemouth bass, which is wreaking havoc in some of our freshwater systems. And that's one of our key projects down in the Cape. I'm a deep-seated passionate bat lover, as are a bunch of other academics on the program. And so we do focus on the ecology of bats. And one of my favorite projects is look at the interactions between bats and elephants. And so we might well engage with that if you guys are up for it and interested. Bernard Kutsia is terrible pun, but one of the leading lights in South African research into the effects of light pollution. It's a vastly unstudied theme in conservation biology, and it's having massive impacts on the ecology of many of our systems. And so that's certainly a theme that we're going to focus on quite substantially as a lecture series, but also a lot of the students are interested in, they're interested in how artificial light might change insect communities, and what that might mean for the bat communities and so on. I guess that summarizes the kind of research that you do, but I just want to finish off by just mentioning that we've now had fully a third of the students come back to South Africa after the program to engage in either internships or graduate studies or further short courses. And so we see your study abroad experience as a platform, a springboard into all kinds of other things. Whether you're coming back to South Africa to study, register in the States and come back and study here, or just come and join us for 2 months for a research internship. all of these are valuable experiences, and certainly something we like to support. So it's not just about the program, but also what can happen after the program. So we would certainly encourage you guys to think about sticking around afterwards to come and work with us on some fire ecology or disease ecology or some veterinary stuff, all kinds. So 27 courses to date. We're in the midst of our 28th course and looking forward to having you guys in South Africa. I think that is all the time that's been allotted to me. I think I might talk your ear off.
Thank you, Laurence. I'm going to join you here on camera. And so now what I want to do is open it up to, hello everyone, open it up to questions. So again, if you do have questions, you're going to go to that bottom right hand corner of your screen, click on the More menu and raise your flag, and then I will unmute you and you have that opportunity to ask your question. I don't know about you, Laurence, but I'm motivated to go on this program, and it's been a few years since I've been an undergrad, so I'm pumped to go. So I can imagine how the students are feeling as well.
Well, anytime you're ready to join us, Brooks, looking
What's
forward
that?
to that.
Yeah,
I say anytime you care to join us, ready to have you here.
Absolutely. All right. I know we got some student questions out there. So again, just raise your flag and I'll unmute you and you can ask your question. Don't be shy. There's no dumb questions here. We understand that a lot of this is new information for you. Okay, I guess we have some shy students tonight. Laurence, or maybe Laurence, you just covered everything. That's the deal. What else is there to ask?
All good.
Okay. All right. Well, since there are no questions, I will bid everyone adieu. Thank you, Laurence, again for sharing that information with us. If anyone does have any questions that they think of later on, or maybe they're too shy to ask now, you can respond to the email that I sent out earlier to all the registrants, or you can email undergraduate@tropicalstudies.org. So thanks for joining us. Thanks again, Laurence, and everyone have a good evening.
Cheers, guys. All the best.
Yeah.
Bye.